In 2020, because of COVID-19, traveling is out, but there's no reason you can't meet old and make new friends at an Agile conference. The Scrum Master Toolbox podcast teamed up with Tom Henriksen to organize the 4th year of the Agile Online Summit, and you can attend for free. There will be networking events, lots of talks on important topics, and 8 amazing keynotes from Mary Poppendick to Alan Holub, Jeff Patton, who's the creator of user story mapping, Neil Killick, who's a no estimates pioneer, Jeff Watts, author of Scrum Mastery, a great book for Scrum Masters, Jeff Gotthelf, Bob Galen, and our very own Markus Hammarberg, who's the author of the Bungsu Story, a great Agile transformation story. You can get your free tickets at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word. Once again, bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word, and the link is also on the show notes. You can get your free ticket or opt for the full digital access that lets you keep all the conference videos forever. And for example, organize Agile learning sessions at work by watching those videos. You can get the full digital access at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. But don't forget, there will be lots of live networking events, so I'll see you at the conference floor. Hello everybody, welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week joining us from the beautiful city of Berlin in Germany is Ronny Deicke. Hi Ronny, welcome to the show.
Hi Vasco, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to have you. So Ronny is a Scrum Master and Agile Coach with a developer and team lead background, currently working as a part-time Scrum Master and in the rest of the time giving Agile workshops, supporting people as a coach and also as an Agile coach. He's also a video game enthusiast and an indie developer on the side. So Ronny, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Thank you for the introduction. I always wanted to work with computers, and after writing my thesis, which was also already about the Agile Manifesto, I started working as a Java developer for a few years, and I started seeing things like process and people-wise, so how things get improved, how people can be supported, and I realized for myself there should be a next step. So the next logical step when you are a developer is becoming a team lead. So I had an opportunity to start as a team lead in a small agency where I worked for 2 years. And I figured out during that time what I like about being a team lead, like talking to people, improving processes, enabling people and enabling the abilities of people and helps them, supports them. And what I don't like, or what I didn't like. So it's a daily work to do, like developing stuff we need to release. So all the daily business. So I took some time off, half a year, did a Scrum Master certification and started working as a Scrum Master for 2 years in a company. And I had a great mentor, a great Agile coach guiding and mentoring me during that time. And I loved the job. I loved working with people. And now I'm a part-time Scrum Master, as you already said. And I also do workshops and coaching and so on. Yeah, that's my way in short.
Absolutely. And I think that thinking about career and then thinking about what's next is a very good example of a typical career path for a Scrum Master, right? We think about what's next and Scrum Master being one of the possible next steps. We start taking our first steps, but you actually invested into it, right?
Yes.
You did the certification. But then we need to practice, right?
Yes.
Once the training is done, then we get our hands dirty, as it were. And sometimes things just don't go as we expect. And today's Monday, so we want to hear one of those stories, Ronny. Tell us a story of a moment where you as a Scrum Master, you struggled. There were things that didn't work out as you expected. And of course, we explore that story because we want to learn what you learned at that time. But tell us that story first.
So I worked in a company and as a Scrum Master, Agile Coach, people are talking to you in one-on-ones. Hey, do you have a minute? Hey, I have a problem I want to talk about. So these problems were talked on one-on-one basis and personal basis, but they were not talked about in the open, in the context of the company. And I thought, okay, why is that? Why these topics are not talked about openly? And I asked myself, okay, what can I do here? How can I support without bringing the problems to the open myself, of course? So I had the hypothesis that there is no room to talk about this. So I created an open space for the whole company, but even there were brave topics in the open space asked, all the results and the talks were quite shallow. I mean, a lot of good things came out of that, but the real core problems, the root problems were not tackled. So it's not a failure, it's a learning. So I learned, okay, hypothesis, maybe not maybe was wrong. So I created a new hypothesis. Okay, maybe there's psychological safety missing in the company. So I built a workshop around that, built a survey, and invited the whole company, put a lot of energy into the format, how to make it as safe as possible for the company to talk about the topic, to tackle the topic of psychological safety. And 6 people came. So I put a lot of energy in. 6 people came. We did the meeting nonetheless with a different format. And everybody who took part was like, okay, this is great, but there should have been more people. So I thought, okay, I'm offering a lot, or trying to offer a lot. So problems can be talked openly, but this is not happening. What's the reason for that? I tried to figure that out. So I took some time off, had a great long weekend in Stockholm to get my head free. And yeah, I realized for myself, maybe what I'm offering right now is not needed by the company. So I forced something on the company, which the company is kind of not ready for. And I thought, okay, what does the company really need right now? And yeah, my new hypothesis was strong teams and really good teams working together, and on that foundation, building up with a company-wide workshops and talking about the real problems. So I focused on that afterwards and changed my approach in the company. So that was like kind of failure, learning, adjusting, and so on. Was a nice ride.
So one thing that is interesting for me is how did you come up with those hypotheses? I understand that some topics were there, but they were not kind of being raised, right? People were either they were afraid or they didn't really feel they needed to raise those, or whatever the reason was.
Yes.
But how did you come up with those hypotheses? Like, what was the process you used to come up with that potential problem that you then went on to try to solve?
In general, talking to people who I know talk to me quite openly and invite me to talk to them and invite me to talk about topics, because somehow people want to talk to me and want to tell me what's going on and want to share what they see and what they experience in the company. And based on that different angles and different views in the company, I built up this hypothesis, because I know my view is very, very limited in the company, even if I talk to a lot of people, and even if I'm just moving between teams, walking around, talking to management, talking to developers, and so on.
So you talked to people, you collected information, you did analysis as you talked to those people, you got their feedback, and you came up with those hypotheses. And then you set up some, let's call them experiments, right? Like the open space, the meeting. But then those didn't really work as you expected. As you look back, like if you were again in the same position back at the beginning of this story that you just told us, what would you have done differently?
Very good question. I would say nothing, because it was a great learning experience. And even with what I contributed, like with a contribution done by the open space, by the psychological safety meeting, even that kind of contribution was valuable for the company and a valuable learning for myself. So I would have gone the same way, I guess.
One of the things I want to highlight in this process you took is that you didn't get discouraged when the first intervention failed, like the open space, right? I mean, as you said, lots of good stuff came out of it, but not the topics you expected. But maybe those were the only topics that could come out at that time. So you thought, okay, so how can I try a new thing? And then you tried a different thing, right? That meeting where you expected more people, 6 people came. sometimes 6 people are the right people.
Exactly. It's always the right people. So I changed the format on the fly and said, okay, let's just sit together, because I prepared a fishbowl meeting with remote setup and everything. And so we just sat together and talked, and it was really valuable to these 6 people. But this would have been a way bigger impact on the company if more people were there. Yeah.
And in a way, this story that you shared kind of describes the process we go through as Scrum Masters all the time for many different things, right? We try this and it doesn't work, and we try that and it doesn't work. If everything we did worked, we would do very little, right? So
exactly.
I think that's, for me, one of the biggest takeaways from this story is this: as Scrum Masters, we need to be able to recognize that many of the things we try as interventions will not work as we expect, but that's okay. We just, regroup, learn from it, and move on.
Yeah, that's a great conclusion you made. Yeah, that's what I meant was I would have done it the same over and over again, let's say, because it was a learning effect and it had some impact.
And in fact, you probably did, because I bet you did other experiments later on, right?
Yes, I did. And I still do.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that story, Ronny.
You're welcome.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.